Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is a Life with Marie. I am the one and only Aisha Marie. If you like what you see in today's video, please give your girl a like. If you really like what you see in today's video, please subscribe, drop a comment below. As you guys can see from this title, even though I'm being silly, we are going to be talking about something a little serious. I'm going to speak about my own experience. I want you guys to please share your stories below if you feel comfortable, but I do want to bring awareness and shed light on a situation that I feel like so many of us face. I want to talk about minority women of color, giving birth, and having near-death experiences. Okay, I don't know if I can say that so on YouTube, but we need to talk about it. We need to shed some light because I experienced it. So let's get into it. Let me tell you guys about the time I almost lost my life giving life. Okay guys, so for those of you who do not know, I am a mother of 4 biological children. They range in ages from 14 down to 2. All of them were C-sections. My very first one was not a planned C-section. I was in labor for hours. I was fully dilated. I was pushing. My blood pressure started to rise and the baby's heart rate started to drop. He then pooped, so that's meconium, and the baby can get very sick. So at that time they decided to rush me in for a C-section. My first C-section, I was extremely overweight. Okay, I was almost 300 pounds, you guys. I was like 270 something, and I'm only 5'4", so I was morbidly obese. And I guess I didn't get enough anesthesia. My right side did not numb when the anesthesiologist went to numb me so that they could do the C-section. As they begin to cut, I could feel them cutting into my flesh. Yes, cutting. And of course they're like, there's a difference between pressure and pain. I'm like, duh. Like, I was calm the whole entire time, you guys. It was such a surreal moment. Like, I wasn't screaming, I wasn't panicking throughout my whole, me pushing and all that. I was not. It was just so surreal. And I have a very high tolerance for pain. Very high tolerance. Not so much now as I did back then, but still, I could feel it. So whatever. So that was really the only thing with that birth. After the C-section, I had a pretty hard time walking around, getting around. Again, I think a lot of it had to do with my size. Second pregnancy, fast forward 4 years later, went back and forth whether or not I was going to have another C-section or go for a VBAC. I ended up having to have a C-section because I had I was high risk. I can't remember for the life of me. Something with my uterus, it wasn't attached, or it was something that basically I had to get monitored. I had to go for an ultrasound every week. And it's crazy, I can't remember the name. I'm so sorry, ladies. I cannot remember the name. Damn. If it comes to me, I'll let you guys know. So everything went fine. I ended up having to have the C-section. I was fine. I was numb. Everything went well. My mom was actually in the delivery room with me for that C-section. From the time they got me all sewn up, stitched up in the OR, like the recovery area, to my room, they had just changed my pad before they rolled me up to the room. By the time I got up to my room, my pad was saturated. And me still being like, I was not really lethargic, but I wasn't really paying it no mind. My mom's the one who was like, they just changed her, and it was fully, like, it was soaked. So thankfully, and this is nothing against any nurse of any color, any ethnicity, but I'm so grateful that I happen to have a caring nurse. She was also black. I believe she was Caribbean, if I'm not mistaken. And she was on her game. She was on top of it. She went and got the doctor. I don't know if they call it like a mini code, like an RRT is what we call it in the hospital, rapid response. But it was on the OB floor, so I didn't hear like an overhead. But like a whole team of people came in, like the on-call doctors. They ended up just in my bed. They just scooped the blood clots out with their hand, gloved hand, scooped it out. I remember they put it in a basin, and that was that. I was fine. So that was that. Now, third pregnancy. This is where things get a little bit different. So now, I was in my 20s, my first 2 pregnancies. My last 2 pregnancies, I was in my 30s. So throughout the pregnancy, I ended up getting a new OB. It's crazy because I had actually met with her twice before, and I did not care for her whatsoever. She was the only black provider besides one midwife, who was actually my husband's godmother. We found that out during my 3rd pregnancy. Only black doctor in the practice. I did not care for her. To me, she wasn't personable when I first met her. She was very like type A, like, and I'm like, I don't know. I just wasn't feeling her vibes. So something told me, you know what, give her another chance. Give her another chance. So I came around, I gave her another chance, and you guys, when I tell you, I've never felt safer with a doctor than I did when she's still my doctor, but when she was caring for me. So, I told her about the situation because obviously she didn't deliver my first 2 babies. So, you know, they can look in your medical history, your chart, whatever. So I told her about that. So she was like, okay. She was like, so when we go, you know, we tighten everything up, clean you up real good. I guess that's like medical terms. Make sure, you know, there's no blood clots in my uterus when they go to sew me back up. Fine. Have the 3rd baby, C-section, everything goes fine. We're good to go. We go back to the room. Now we're smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. Okay, February of 2021. Everything is still pretty much shut down. You still have to wear a mask. The hospital is not allowing any visitors except for one. So the only person that was allowed was my husband. At the time, we were still engaged, actually. Hours later, I started bleeding, right? He's knocked out. He was sleeping. It had to be like 10 o'clock at night. I called my nurse. She took a while to get in, right? So she changed me. My pad was saturated. She went out to get my pain meds. So I was like, okay. Came back in with my pain meds, and I was like, I think I think my pad is full again. Like, I think I'm bleeding. And I was so calm about it, right? So she's like, no. She was like, I just changed you. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But I was like, so she was like real skeptical. Like, I didn't know what I was talking about. Like, ma'am. She's like, are you sure it's just not the pressure from your, you know, because you have the C-section scar and all that? No. I can feel the blood coming out. So she checks. She goes back and gets another nurse. They come in. They change me together. And then as they're changing, I'm still bleeding. And they're like, she says to the other nurse, she was like, I think I need to call the doctor. So I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking in my head, like, yeah, I think you should call the doctor. Mind you, my husband is still knocked out. On the couch, knocked out. He has no idea what's going on. So they call the on-call doctor. I want to say it took about 10 minutes, 15 minutes for them to get there. They brought the ultrasound machine, right? It was like a doctor and another nurse. So at this point, it's only maybe 4 people in the room, 3 or 4 people. The doctor does an ultrasound. And she was like, now they're talking. And they're like, who's her doctor? Blah, 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 blah. Thankfully, my doctor was actually still on call. She was actually sleeping though. She had delivered all her babies for the day. She was in the on-call room sleeping. They call my doctor, and like, I want to say this happened so quickly. It happened within 5 minutes. You guys, a room full of people. They have me. My doctor comes in. She's very calm. She was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what happened, but she was like, we're gonna get it together. We're going to the OR. Talking to her, they hand me a consent form to operate. I'm signing the consent form as they're rolling me out the room. They don't say anything. One of the nurses, because now at this point, it went from like 4 people in the room. Now there was like 10 people in the room. So I'm like, oh shit, this is getting serious. So I'm like, what's happening? And I started panicking a little bit because my husband was sleeping and he wasn't waking up. And I'm like, oh my God. It's like, how do you not wake up? You don't hear all these people in here and all this commotion and then moving me and pushing me and getting shit out the way? Like, motherfucker, wake up. So the nurse was like, don't worry, I'll wake him up. I'll let him know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. All right, so they take me down to the OR. You guys, I get to the OR. They're setting me up. Because I was under anesthesia and I had the numbing, the anesthetic, it's like a block or whatever. They were not able to give me another block. So I had to lay there while they scraped all the blood clots out, like using a scalpel or whatever. They did a DNC. Usually you're put under for a DNC. They were not able to put me under anesthesia. So I was awake. All they were able to do, so like, you know, they have like a whole emergency team. So the anesthesiologist was there. So what he had to do, he was administering pain meds to me while I'm awake. But as I'm awake, like, I just try to calm myself down. Like, I could feel my body getting so warm. And I was trying to keep myself as calm as possible, but I could feel myself like fading in and out, in and out. They're talking to me, and you guys know, like, the OR room is all white, and I'm like, oh Lord, don't take me now. I have 3 kids now. Like, what's going on? And I'm fading in and out of consciousness. Finally, I remember I got so calm. I didn't know if that was the end or what. I got so calm. I remember waking up in recovery. Now, I don't know how much time had passed. I literally had just calmed myself. I don't know if I fainted or I don't know if I just calmed myself to the point where I was just totally relaxed. Woke up in recovery. Doctor came in to check on me. And she was like, I'm going to go up and talk to your significant other. Because at the time he was still my fiance. Just let him know what's going on and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay. Thank God the nurse that was taking care of me, I will never forget her. An older white lady. She was like my mother in there. She was the closest thing that I had to my mother because my mother couldn't be there. And I think she could tell. She let me use her personal cell phone to call my mom. Okay. Talk to my mom, let her know that I was okay, whatever. I had to stay down in recovery for another couple hours because they were monitoring me. They were making sure everybody kept coming in, checking it, whatever, make sure that the bleeding was done. And I remember I got back to the room. I was fine. Everything was like, you know, I don't know if I was in shock, but it was like a surreal experience. You guys, I got back to the room. I called. So, was he there yet? He had left. My husband had left. Did he leave or he hadn't left yet? No, he had not left yet. I got back to the room. I seen him. You know, he was like, babe, I was so worried, blah, blah, blah. Y'all, why did they call security on him? That's why the doctor went up to talk to him. They called security on him because he started panicking and no one was telling him what was going on, so he thought something had happened to me. So he pitched a fit. He said it was like 3 security guards. They were going to escort him out, but he woke up in a panic. He said the baby wasn't in there. They had brought the baby back to the nursery because he was in there with me. You know, I was breastfeeding him like while I was bleeding, like just regular. So he had woke up, no woman, no baby. And hours, it was like hours later. As soon as I talked to my mom, I literally just broke down and started crying. I'll never forget. I was like, I was so scared, and you know, and it was just so, it was a lot. Like, I literally thought I was gonna die, you guys. I thought I was done. And afterwards, you know, he went out and brought me a big teddy bear, flowers, balloons, to kind of make me feel better. We ended up going home. Now, I will say, my third pregnancy, and I don't know if this has anything to do with that traumatic experience. With Dallas, I experienced the worst postpartum depression. Okay? Which leads me to another serious conversation. I checked myself into the emergency room. I didn't get admitted, but I brought myself to the emergency room because one day, I was having such a tough week. It was horrible. And I was honestly thinking about ending it, everything. I just was done. Like, it was too much. I don't know where all these emotions and these feelings came from, but it was hard for me. And I was like disappointed in myself. Like, how dare you? You have 3 kids now and you want to give up. Like, whatever you're going through, you can deal with it. Now, at this point, I honestly think that my husband was suffering from a little postpartum depression as well. When I tell you, he was so mean to me when I went back to work. I think he had got so attached to me. I was home for 8 weeks or 8 or 10 weeks, something like that. I was home for 8 or 10 weeks and we were together every day. Every day. As soon as I went back to work, I think he had like separation anxiety or something. He was an asshole. Like, we were on the verge, like, we had a hard time recovering from that point in our relationship. Like, coming back from that. Because it took me a long time to forgive how he treated me during that period. Because it was like a complete 180. He had went from being like the man of my dreams, like, oh my God, he was helping me with the baby. Like, the first 3 months, everything was amazing. Great. He was making me feel good. You know. After that, girl, bye. Worst postpartum I had. So whatever, I ended up going, and I just really needed someone to talk to. I talked to a social worker, and of course it didn't go away like that, but it was just nice talking to somebody. You know, we went through the motions, and now, when I found out I was pregnant with my 4th and final child, Dallas was 9 months. He was 9 months old. Found out I was pregnant. I didn't even know what to feel, because I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how am I pregnant again? I was so scared that pregnancy. Like, I had PTSD. I had to get a therapist. My midwife recommended a therapist because I was petrified. Like, that last experience, remember, it was less than a year that had happened. That's all I could think about my entire pregnancy, you guys. So I couldn't even enjoy and it was actually, my last pregnancy was by far my best pregnancy. I didn't have any sickness, any symptoms. I didn't start showing until I was about 7 months. I hardly gained any weight until my last couple months. I started gaining weight when I was like 7 or 8 months. Once I started showing, I was in a good mood, everything, but I was literally just scared to give birth, and this was my 4th pregnancy. So I had to talk to a therapist, and I actually loved my therapist. Yes, it was a black therapist, a female therapist. She was great. She was also a licensed social worker. Guys, I think I harassed my doctor so much because it was another scheduled C-section. They did not schedule me with her because she was not on call. You guys, I was freaking out. I was messaging her, and she even reached out to me. like personally, like, Aisha, I'm so sorry. She knew how afraid I was, and I only trusted her. Like, she knew I was like in tears. Like, please, can you, can we schedule it for a different? She literally tried to change her schedule around to accommodate me. And but she was like, she reassured me that the doctor that I was scheduled, I actually met her twice. She was nice, but she reassured me that, she's very capable and competent. She's a lot like her, like they practice the same. So whatever. You guys, once I finally got comfortable with that idea, like, okay, it is what it is. You guys, why did I go into labor? 3 days after my baby shower and almost 3 weeks before my scheduled C-section. It was like 2.5 weeks before my scheduled C-section. So the doctor who I had met and became comfortable with, I had like 2 or 3 appointments with her. She wasn't on call. And neither was my doctor. I got stuck with the newest member of that team. The young doctor. You guys, talk about a nervous wreck. Talk about a nervous wreck. When I tell you, Dr. Danielle, I don't remember her last name. Danielle did her thing. She delivered my baby. She knew all my concerns. She knew all the history. She did her thing. I didn't have any bleeding. Everything went smoothly. Okay. Young white doctor. She had to be, I feel like her and I maybe were around the same age. So, did her thing. And I was happy. I was still paranoid as hell. The first 72 hours. Child was calling them nurses in there every 5 minutes. Can you check and see if I'm bleeding? I know they were like, bitch, you're not bleeding. So a couple days later, because for a C-section you have to stay in the hospital a few days, like 3 to 4 days, sometimes 5 depending. So like day 3, my doctor, now she's on call. She came in and she stopped in my room to see me. She was like, what did this little girl came when she wanted to come, huh? I said, yes, she did. She said, well, guess what? She was like, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. She said, I saw that you were on the schedule. She said, I called Dr. Danielle, whatever her name was, and explained everything. And I told her what meds to give you to prevent the hemorrhaging. You guys, I was so blessed to have that lady. Still have that lady as my doctor. She was not on call. She saw that me, her patient, was on this doctor's schedule early in the morning. She called the doctor to make sure she followed the plan that my doctor had set in place with these other doctors. Because she had basically had conversations with the other doctor. That's when she had reassured me, like, I already spoke to her. She knows what to do. I already, let her know blah, 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 blah. God is so good. God is so good. And I will really say that besides God and prayer, she saved my life. Not once, but twice. And I don't want any of you, don't let this scare you. I just want to bring awareness. Things can happen. It is important that you advocate for yourself. If it doesn't seem right, speak on it. Because you never know. What you think may be normal, if it doesn't feel right, your body. Listen to your body. Listen to that spirit. Listen to whatever. And speak up. And you'll see that in the healthcare field, unfortunately, our voices are not heard. They are not heard like our counterparts. And that's women in general. However, minority women have it worse. Okay? It's very important that you speak up, advocate for yourself, advocate for your baby. If you're a man watching this or whoever, advocate for your significant other, for your spouse. Make sure they're getting the care that they receive. Make sure that they're being heard and taken seriously. Because I'm going to try to find something and insert it somewhere. This is the mortality rate of women who pass during childbirth. It's insane. It is insane. Make sure you're getting up after you have your baby and you're walking. Preventing blood clots. Okay? You guys, it's scary, but if you are proactive, you can prevent it to the best of your ability. So again, I just wanted to share my experience. I would love to hear your experiences. I want us to be a community, a support for one another. And of course, everyone is welcome to comment. Share your birth experience. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to your girl. Thanks so much for watching. Mwah.